Glowacki?
Glowacki.
Yep, you're going to say it.
Glowacki.
Say it again.
Glowacki.
Like Jabberwocky?
Exactly.
Yes.
It is like Jabberwocky. But
Like there's, I think, a newscaster in Cleveland at one of the stations, Jackie Glowacki,
There you go.
I think.
Glowacki.
I follow the news stations on Twitter from Cleveland. Just in case there's freeway closures. Hey, part of 71 is closed north of Mansfield.
You never know.
Tweet that out
It
exactly.
always helps.
You never know if that
on the road and
71
I get that
will cut
email
across
from
Old
Jim. I'm like,
Henderson.
That's
yeah,
what I
dog.
use. Hey, that's what I use Twitter for. You know I do the
Well,
traffic reports in the afternoon, or maybe you don't.
Oh, I didn't know
You
that.
know.
No, I know.
Mind your
That's what I use Twitter for.
Ah, I didn't know that.
I follow all the police departments, sheriffs. Yeah, they tweet out. Some of them are better at tweeting out traffic accidents than others.
have to monitor yourself in case you don't have to read
I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about you.
Are we live?
I'm ready, Jimmy. Yeah, we were live.
No, not yet.
Well, we're live on Facebook, so we're good.
Oh, okay. You already turned it on. I was
Yeah.
gonna push the
I
button.
rubbed it.
Rachel gets all
Huh?
touchy with the...
What?
Did you put it live?
Yeah.
I didn't even know you did.
I did.
Cool.
So far,
So
the
we're
show's
live.
going great.
Yeah,
live
we're doing
right
great.
Yeah.
now. We'll wait on Jim to signal us, and we'll go.
No, I'm just waiting for you to stop talking. That's all. I thought, hey, we could keep this going and we could just have a conversation.
I'm totally ready.
And we can, we can be out of here by 4 o'clock.
Why that early?
Oh my God.
All right, Jimmy, we're ready.
Okay, ready?
Welcome back to the 101, brought to you by Lincoln Wallace, the small business and entrepreneurial show. As always, Madison Gillespie's here from Lincoln Wallace. Madison, how are you?
I'm awesome. I got my sister here this morning. I just had to cut you off. I didn't want you to say it.
No, I'm going to cut you off because why did you like you didn't know? Like, I've got my sister here?
There's a question mark on the teleprompter.
Oh, you want to do it?
I can, yeah.
Because it's apparently pronounced Jen Glowacki.
It's actually pronounced Glowacki.
I was so
You're
close.
close. Yeah.
Jen, thanks for being. First of all, you're coming from a different state.
Yes, Denver.
Yeah, no, Colorado's the state.
Well, sure, okay. All right. If you want to be real specific.
Yeah, like, I don't need you to give me the street address or anything, but you're coming from another state.
Yes,
Toledo.
Colorado.
Yes. And you are here for what purpose? To just do this show?
Yes.
Well,
You guys
and
are
to see
special.
Joe
Well,
is
my
working.
brother, of course.
Yeah,
See
I was
my
going to
brother.
say, this would not be the highlight of the trip to do this show, but we do appreciate you being here. We should kind of touch on why you're here or what you do. Can you kind of give people your background?
Absolutely. Well, I'll kind of actually start currently. I've currently been working as a human resource director in my husband's company, wholesale distribution, and also launched my own business about 4 months ago, a box-to-door service, allowing people to actually have products that touch the moments of their lives in real time. And I've been thinking a little bit about entrepreneurship because I think sometimes we think of our current positions as when we became an entrepreneur. But looking back, actually, when I was 14, I started a babysitting service. And my goal was
you
just...
did that door to door?
Yes.
No.
Oh.
I wanted to screen the potential
All
kids
right, well, I
first.
wanted to be clear in case someone thinks that's a good idea now.
No, I don't advise that.
Okay.
It didn't really go very far, but the point was,
I don't know why. It sounded great.
I really wanted parents to have someone they trusted vetting babysitters for them and making it easier for them to get jobs, and also for the babysitters to have trusted places to go and watch kids because, you don't want to throw them into a crazy situation either at 14 years old. So it kind of started out there, and interestingly enough, my parents ran a business most of my life. My mom directed a daycare. And I look back
Which sounds like an easy task, but it is not.
No,
It seems like
it's
there's
not.
a lot of kid things involved in your family.
There is.
Oh, yeah.
A
There's
lot of safety issues, I think.
Yeah, yes.
But we've heard this background because Madison's told us this background.
Okay,
Not so much
yes.
about you, but about explaining why he is what he is.
Why
It's
is a
complicated,
little screwed
yeah.
up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so
That's right.
so you've been around entrepreneurs your whole life,
Yes.
small business people.
Yes.
And so why are you in Colorado?
We actually moved there to expand my husband's business.
Oh,
It
okay.
was a better place for us to be, and so we literally started ground zero and built our entire staff up out there, and that was where I really felt like I got into the aspect of human resources, being able to hire everybody in from the ground up and to create the culture from the beginning.
But you took the human resources piece yourself, right? That was what
Yes.
you were going to do.
So actually my husband's company did not have a human resources department when I came in. They're a smaller business. They kind of just always made it work and covered their bases. And when I came in, I saw a need for that. And I think that my husband, being an entrepreneur, didn't want to turn human resources into a bunch of policies and procedures and protocols. And I said, I think we can do this differently. And that's what I set out to do.
But you see that there's a need for that. I think we talked about this. It was either last week or the week before about when you're an entrepreneur, some of the things you have to let go. And that's one of them is you can't create things. You can't make the product and then also have to address like somebody not showing up to work a couple days in a row. Like you can't do everything. So you do need somebody in human resources.
Absolutely.
So the title of this show that's on Facebook Live is Putting the Human Back in Human Resources. What do you mean by that?
I think that there's a little bit of a stereotype of HR people. In fact, when people meet me, they're like, "You're HR?" and they're surprised. And so I kind of believe that my mission was to focus back on policies and procedures with the humans being the factor that wrote the policy, not the other way around. Let's not just write a policy and try to apply it to humans. Let's actually look at humans and their behavior and what we're trying to promote, and then create that policy the other direction so that we actually focus on helping the people while we also maintain the integrity of our mission and vision of the company.
When you're looking at that, are you looking at that from the aspect of this kind of applies to Brick House Blue. Shout out to them again for some reason.
That's twice in a week.
Right. Well, no, technically 10 days. But they have that kind of open forum, creativity part where they're kind of mixing and matching best practices. Is that kind of what you're doing, is taking that collective aspect and applying it to your human resources, or did I have that totally wrong?
You probably could speak to a little bit more of what
right.
you
You're
know.
kind of involved. You guys know each other.
Yeah, I think that question
Was perfect.
No, not really. Explain it again, because I don't know where you're going with that.
What I meant was, what she's talking about is so much different than the corporate structure. Think about the world we came from. Yeah. There's a list of rules. You can and can't do all of this. Right. But those rules have been in place for 30 to 40 years.
Right.
Correct.
They haven't really been, it's not like, it's kind of like the Constitution. Like there might be some revisions here and there, but this is like template.
Yeah.
So what it sounds like to me is you are saying, these are a guideline, but we might want to adapt these based on today's behaviors.
Exactly.
It's more organic.
I told you it was perfect.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
The second time.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks.
Well, it's actually funny. I was telling Madison, I said, sometimes you look back on your life and you think periods of time were a waste of time. And I look at corporate jobs I had and I thought, man, that's just 8 years I lost. But now, the role that I'm in, I use all of those experiences to change the way that I handle our staff. Because one of the things I'll never forget in my career as an adjunct professor was I had a new boss who actually been my boss for a year. When I first met her, it was at my review.
Say that again. So you met your boss and then she was giving you a review the first time you met?
Yes.
I bet that went well.
I was actually humiliated because I felt like you didn't even take the time to get to know anything about me or the role I play at your company, yet you have the audacity to review me.
Judge me.
And to judge me. And I actually had the highest reviews of any professor at that school. But when I sat down, her only complaint was I didn't turn the grades in on the right day of the week. And I felt like...
Well, I hope you were fired for that.
I agree.
Well, and no, I don't work there anymore, but it stuck with me.
So that review went really well.
It went fantastic.
I like that there's only one thing you needed to do and you did not do it and you were upset with her. I mean,
I know, the audacity of me.
I don't know if that's saying something about you. I mean, we're all about breaking rules, but like there's one rule. Hi, these kids can't graduate unless you turn this in. I'm going to get around to it, bro. It's October. But let's back up because I didn't even know. So you had, previous to being in HR, you were a professor?
Yes, adjunct professor.
Which is a perfect transition into human resources. That's why I said let's start in the beginning. You're kind of getting.
Well, when I was born.
Right.
So day zero.
This is like, I want to give you my book review. So I'm Team Bella. Like, we need to know how this started. So how did you get into HR?
Well, actually, like I said, when I met my husband, he already had a company going, and what
And
ended up,
obviously fired, so you could go with him anywhere you want.
She had job.
I was jobless, so it worked out great.
I met him at a bus terminal.
No, actually what ended up happening is he would have staff issues. And actually, I'll never forget, I went to a trade show in Vegas with him, and he had some issues going on with staff, and he's like, can you meet them at the coffee shop and figure this out? And 4 hours later, he was like, I don't know what you just did, but that worked. Do that. We need more of that. And it just kind of morphed into me coming in to handle situational problems among staff members, and it developed into trainings, and then into a department, and into policies that actually, my goal is that the policy encourages not only appropriate behavior, but actually a behavior that the employee also feels that they want to be aligning with. So it's aligning with their own beliefs as well as the company's. When employees and the company don't align in beliefs, you're going to have massive problems. There has to be something that we have in common that makes us want to show up together every day and do work. And when people don't have that, you kind of have all kinds of conflict.
It's stuff we talk about in the corporate structure that we're in. I mean,
well, I think we're talking about it from what we experienced and how rigid it was.
Right.
And I think why I like that she's here is one, Andrew's not here, and the other part is I like it.
Sorry, Andrew.
That there is somebody who is kind of talking about this structure you're in. That it should be malleable. It should move. Versus these are the rules and there's nothing to get around it. I mean, we talked about our frustration. That's why we became entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't take any more of this is how it's always been done. And that was from the sales side, but that was also from just the A to B. Like if I wanted to work with you on something, well, that's not how we do it.
Right.
Well, think about it. Like you have corporate who ultimately makes the decision. Then you have a general manager. Then you have a general sales manager. Then you have a sales manager. You have a local sales manager. Then you have the HR person. So now you have 6 people involved that really all aren't communicating. All maybe don't know the issue.
They all have different agendas.
All different agendas, but they're still pushing on you the same goals financially that they have to accomplish.
That is somebody else's goal.
That's somebody else's goal. And then there's this disconnect between you just get that sense that who does really care? And by the time it gets to them, do they even know the situation, or are they all speaking to each other?
Well, here's the funny thing. We're talking about HR here. How many times did you get to go to HR versus how many times did HR say, I need to talk to you about something that you said or did?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't get to go to them with an issue, right? It was they came to you and said, you violated this or this or this.
That's the biggest issue with HR is that typically people's interaction with HR is a negative. It's when something's already way off track.
Right. I mean, it's when there's but what I always thought was odd was if you had a complaint, you had to take it to your manager, and then it was up to them to deliver it back.
Yes.
What manager's going to go, I totally blew this, okay? I messed this up, and I want you to penalize me. It gets swept under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, every time.
And remember when we had the conversation about the whole Me Too movement and all that? How many things did you hear about or that you knew about in our business where it's like, that's going on every single day, and no one's reporting it. I was in a situation where it was reported on the manager, and they got 3 days paid late. Like, you need to go home and think about this. And had I known, I would have used the vacation time too. I'd have, but it was an HR thing where they didn't want it to go. They didn't want it to go that much farther.
Yeah.
So they told HR, and then it was, but we'll handle it, right? They didn't really solve the problem.
No.
I'm glad we got that out because
Yeah.
you seem really uncomfortable. You seem like you have something in mind. Yeah, look at you.
Yeah. Am I all perked up?
Well, you're in a large stool right now.
It is a giant stool. No, I think coming from a different background, to Jen's point, was that if you've been in that environment and you see those things, like we all have, you really respect when somebody's doing it for the betterment of the person, not you throwing the policies on the person just because these are our rules, these are our guidelines, you have to follow them. Right. You know, and at that point they become traffic signs and rules that you just have to obey them or else you're going to get in trouble, and then you're living in fear of, if I don't abide by this, and you don't feel like you have that sense of worth with what you're, you know, it all kind of ties together. At least it did for me. That's how I felt, that I was just following rules to follow rules, and at the end of the day, to Jen's point, you're going to HR when there's an issue. Right. Not like, hey, how are you? How are things going? Like, you know, actually improving on the environment of what you're working in.
Don't you guys do work together, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
So what's it like that now you're out of the cage roaming around, and then you're dealing with people every day, and it is a small business, but you have a lot of employees that you're responsible for. So you kind of have both, like you flip sides.
Yeah. Well, Lincoln Wallace is extremely active in Glow Industries, the company. I mean, it's our biggest account. We're really involved in it. So I've been able to see, not just because she's my sister, but I've been able to see the entire culture of the business and what she's creating change. And I've been able to see the transformation of what her principles and how she works with employees. And people enjoy showing up to work. Get that. People actually want to come into work, and what she's doing is really powerful within that. And I think a lot of business owners get in situations where they don't know how to manage the people side of it, but they're great business owners. But again, why we started the show, talking about things that you can't manage all of it. You can't you can't go and figure out what's going on with your employees while you're running a business and trying to do all the different facets of it. And she's come in and saw it within Glow and been like, I can use my resources and my knowledge to help create this culture and to build a better environment and to get rid of losing employees and wasting money, or having bad employees there that are ultimately wasting you money. And really, at the end of the day, if you look at the bottom line, what she's doing for the company is only increasing their profits and eliminating all the negative and all the stuff that's slowing you down as a company. We all know it. We've all seen it with clients we have. There's bad apples. There's stuff going on.
We haven't had one of those. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, the hiring process in and of itself is a beast of a task for anyone that's hired. They know. Just from the amount of resumes you get, how do you even sort those resumes? How does the interview process even work? And after investing hours and hours of time, am I really even going to get the employee that I sought out to get? And it feels like it's a shot in the dark. And I really strive to create a process that isn't a shot in the dark, and that there actually are ways to measure how you're getting the right employees and what you say in interviews. And it's amazing the group of people that we have. And I'm blessed to work with our staff because we have an amazing culture of people, but that also came through the interviews and changing the way we did our interviews.
Well, so you've got this, we always talk about a sales funnel, but you've got an HR funnel. How did you change that? How did you change the model that you had before to what you're doing now? Because you had to find a way to weed out the poor applicants, right?
Correct. One of the biggest things we've done is we do a phone interview in our first step. Many people don't even show up to the first interview, so right there you've wasted.
What do you mean? They get scheduled and they no show you?
Oh yeah.
I would totally do that. They're hard to get. Go on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very typical. I mean, half the people you contact won't contact you back, and the other half that you schedule won't show up.
Is that because of their age, or is that just because that's how people are, that they're all trash?
They're all trash. No, I'm kidding. I think it's part of the process. Half the people aren't really serious about the job. The other piece is, are you hiring an employee to fill a spot, or are you hiring a person to fill a cultural spot? Because if somebody just wants a job, you can tell that. Madison and I were talking about this last night. You can tell in the first few minutes if the person cares about working for you or just getting a job. And that's one of the first things I look for. If they don't light up about the company, they don't know anything about the company. I've had people come into an interview and they're like, this is where again? I'm like, you don't even know you're at Glow Industries?
It's in the state of Denver.
This is... Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm in freaking Denver.
Well, she told me, Jason, so her husband, my brother-in-law, this guy at the gym asked him about his company. He's like, I want to learn more about the company. And Jason goes, you want to learn more about the company? He goes, you find me online and get a hold of me, I'll interview you. Like,
and
show
he
that you
works
care.
for us today.
And he works for him.
Jason works there?
Some days. It depends. It's a crapshoot.
Well, you have to be clear. You just say he. You could just use pronouns and not like finish it up.
No, what's his name? Jay or
AJ.
AJ.
Yes.
Close.
I see.
And actually, the way he even got interested was seeing our staff at the gym, and he said, your staff look happy to work for your company. And that attracted me, and I want to work for you. So creating the culture also affects the community, and the community sees the people that you're putting out there, and it draws in people who care about culture.
Right. Mike, we talk about this with Google and some of these big tech companies, that they're creating cultures where unlimited vacation, work out of a lounge chair in the lobby, work
or
from
you
home.
can work from home,
Work
or they've
wherever
got
you
a
want.
gym. All the things that would keep an employee like engaged in that stuff. we're seeing it more, but it's not on the scale of where you would think, like in entertainment. And when I say that, radio, TV stations, newspaper, they're all doing this. Like this is still like the 1960s, and like they're working on a print.
You got to be
press.
sitting at your desk at 5:15.
Right. So you've got somebody that's unmotivated because I know I have to be there at 8:30 and then 5:30. So am I going to be doing anything other than waiting till that time comes? But I will say this: one of the stations in town said that they don't have to wear ties anymore, so things are loosening up.
Yeah.
We're making progress.
Game changer.
I will say though,
they're getting this much closer to getting those Bosa balls or whatever you can sit on at your desk.
so they can bounce around the office.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fun environment when you go to work. I'm not saying it has to be fun every day, but like a culture does matter because when things are really high, everybody's like swimming the same direction. And when something goes downhill, whether it's a buyout or bankruptcy or whatever, you as an employee, they're not telling you, you don't have to worry about your job. Like, Bill, you're going to get fired or laid off, but you're good. They don't tell you anything. So your anticipation of something bad happening is sped up. Mm-hmm. And HR doesn't care because they've got a list and it's like Noah's Ark. One old, one young, one lady, one guy.
Yeah, no, it's true though.
Right? And I mean, how many times have you seen that? And it's the best because that's a fun game to play where you're just writing down lists. But,
well, you and I have been... I've only been out about a year now, but you've been out of that cultural environment with corporate for a long time.
8 years, yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of forget really what that's like. And when somebody's dictating how your mortgage is being paid on a personal level, coming in and attacking you for not doing something right, all that stuff affects everything that you do. It makes you miserable, especially...
Well, it is kind of like you get that PTSD because it took me... I've been gone 8 years from the corporate world, but I still have to deal with those same people because I'm doing something different. I'm buying or putting something together versus selling for them. On the other side, you just kind of like you have to forget about it. Like it doesn't matter. These people don't matter. They have no relevance. It's either you want this money or you don't from somebody else. Mm-hmm. Whereas before you were kind of stuck where you're like, these are your masters and you have to do what they're telling you to do.
Yeah.
So it'd be that meeting at 3:30. Like it's very important we all get together at 3:30 on a Thursday. For what? To announce we have T-shirts we're going to pass out at event. You know what I mean? It's like, I would murder everyone here. Why did I have to come back? And then I say till 5:30, right? Mm-hmm. And then you want to go to HR and be like, I've got a problem, right?
I murdered 5 people.
Yeah, I murdered 30 people, but they all had T-shirts. Jen, do you guys have T-shirts?
How do you follow that?
Yeah. I'm not sure where I want to go with that.
I just want to see if she would jump on board with that. I want to get more strategic because you have roughly the King James Bible unbound on the table, and I want to get into that, but I think we're going to have to go to break to get into this.
Sounds good.
But before we do that, I just want to touch on one more thing. So you guys, brother and sister, are working together, and brother-in-law. So do you guys have conflict because Lincoln Wallace is an HR arm, right? You are an HR. Do you guys somewhat butt heads?
This is our HR arm.
Oh, okay. Well, you should have told me that before we turned the mic.
Well,
now it's silly that
you never listened to me.
That's not fair.
Do we need to have a moment?
I don't listen, but I never ask you
We need
questions.
a break just for intervention purposes.
You understand? We have great conversations off the mic that have nothing to do with business.
No.
And then we go on here, and I'm like, wait, you did what? That is really cool. And then he'll be like, what are you doing now? And I'm like, not now. Later.
So true, yeah.
Yeah.
No, part of what we do is, the co-creating aspect of using good resources within all elements of the businesses that you're attached to. I saw what Jen did and what she created within Glow out in Denver, and you feel the difference. You just do. And there's all kinds of different companies that we can use her as means to come in, and you and I have talked to Mike about different cultural issues that whole...
Well, wanting the culture and creating the culture are two very different things, and it is very difficult.
Well, that's a really good point, because people, if you go into some place and they say, we want to shake things up, they don't really want to shake it up, so they're kind of giving you a false narrative, and you're supposed to do something with that.
Well, that would be part of the consulting process. I know what clients I'm looking to work with, and if we're not on the same page within 30 days, then we need to part ways because we both don't want the same thing. And that's a very important part of everything we do at the company is a 30-day, magic 30 days, because human behavior cannot fake or create something past 30 days, it's false. That makes sense. So maybe someone does say, hey, I'm on board, let's do whatever you want at my company. Within 30 days, you'll know if they really are ready to go there or not. And it's not a judgmental thing, it's just a realization that that's not where they're really at this point in time. And we've done the same thing with employees. You're not really on the same page as a company at this point in time. It would be best if we both separated versus trying to continue to force something that isn't meant to happen right now. Because yes, it's a commitment. To create a culture is a daily commitment in your business that requires a ton of energy by at least one individual that's dedicated to it, or a group of individuals that believe in that culture. And if you don't commit to it, it won't happen. I actually stepped away just for a few weeks, kind of taking care of some other things, and my husband's like, you got to get back in there. Like, things are different, things are off, because there's a pulse. You're basically taking the heartbeat and pulse of your company on a daily basis, and I'm very proactive. I don't wait until something blows up. I really want to nip it in the bud and get in and let's get down to business and let's make this
because
better.
then gossip kicks in, everybody's talking, nothing's been dealt with, how.
Well, a perfect example of what she's saying is John Wooden. There's a documentary about him and the way that he taught his players. So he would have practices, and before, like, they would be running everything perfectly, but he would start to drift farther and farther off the floor to the point where we'd go up in the rafters at Poly Pavilion and watch. And once they could not see him and they thought he had left, they're starting to throw passes out, not running, because we have this culture we're all adapting to. We're all on the same page. But if I turn my back and no one's looking, it just takes a little bit of somebody getting out of sorts that also gets somebody else out. So it is a big difference. You have to have someone guiding that culture.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We're up against a break right now, but we will be right back. You're listening to 101, brought to you by Lincoln Wallace. All right, so you want to get into your 6 steps here, or do you want to get into that? Jim, we're going to come right back.
Yeah.
The couple of things that out of there that I was wanting to hit was, so I kind of worked on this after I gave you the
Rachel's
list.
nodded here. I was going to ask you, do you know who John Wooden is?
Flip over to
Yay, sports.
Yeah, exactly.
what I was.
But what most people don't know is
like the
where he's from.
absenteeism,
Where is he from?
disengagement.
where he played his college basketball.
Statistically, are high cost.
Where is that?
You saying that? Do you
know?
You saying
No,
absolutely?
huh?
Yes?
What's the second thing you said?
Disengagement.
No idea.
Those are two
Ohio State?
different things.
Nope.
Right? Or are they?
You're close. It was
Yeah.
a Big Ten school.
Michigan?
Yes,
Nope.
and
Indiana?
the
Right,
cost of
even
that
closer.
companies is astronomical.
He played at Purdue.
did he really?
He's from
actively
Indiana.
disengaged
Is he really?
staff.
Most people, you ask him, hey,
They're
where did
people
John Wooden play his
Yeah.
college basketball? They'll look at you and go, UCLA?
Yep.
No,
Yeah,
that's
he
where he
And
coached.
actually,
coached.
that's
Yeah.
kind of how
And for
I
the
got
first,
involved,
like,
because I got
14 or
doubts,
15 years, he didn't win a
certified.
championship.
I went to their training.
So it took him a while. He
And
didn't
then
go
had
in and say,
constantly
okay, hey, we
around
won my
the
first year or my
individual
second
strengths
year.
of the team.
Right.
So we're not well-rounded.
He would
as
even
individual
teach his,
people.
he would
We're
show his
sharp as
players a
individual
certain way to
people,
put their
well-rounded
socks
as a team.
on and
all
all
of
sorts
their
of
work
other
came out of studying 80,000
things.
companies and disengagement.
I think you need another one of
Internationally.
these.
I know.
And the disengagement was 33%. Like only 33% of employees in the United States are engaged at work. That's scary.
Only the.
Yeah.
See if we got
And
another one.
13%.
That'd be awesome, Jim.
But I mean, that to me was staggering to think that many people.
I thought you were saying
spend
a
that many
third
hours a
were
week.
not involved. If
No,
only a third
only
are
a
involved.
third are
Technically,
involved.
That's the third. You're not involved.
That's right. If you do the math, I'm not involved.
Well, and it's called presenteeism. Like I'm here, I'm sitting here, but I'm not participating. I'm
It's
filling
me
my
in
chair.
every meeting.
We all know, we've all been there. Like, you've been there on the day at work where you don't want to be there and you're pretending you're working,
You can
but
set
you're
it up
really
like
not.
Yeah,
right here.
That'd be perfect.
And put
So
it
you
point
relate.
it right at you. Just you.
So my whole point is like, how do you
just say, "Look
create
at me."
engagement
Will you
for
angle
business?
this so that
And
it's
then
like, because I won't be able to see it.
not only does the culture
I just wanna
change,
get-
but obviously
Actually.
the profit margins,
Probably
they're
do it
6
back
times
here, right?
engaged people are 6 times more
don't
productive.
know.
Yeah, that would work.
That's a game changer. And
Point it
like I
right
said,
at
when they
you.
want to come to work,
Or
our
point it
staff
just
want
at your
to be
sister.
there.
It's
I
not
actually
It's all
believe
about
our
me.
staff don't
No,
want to miss out.
you and your sister.
Yeah,
and
sure.
not
Because
Michael.
we have that
He doesn't deserve
culture
it.
going, and they know
He
that
doesn't.
they have a value because we talk about. We hired each one of you. I tell them, you already have a seat at the table. You're hired. You don't need to act like the laptop. Like, you have a chair. So own your place in the company, and that you bring a unique value that nobody else can bring. And then that's a
Could be the second
completely
half of
different
the show.
approach versus them saying, oh, well, you could hire anybody to do my job.
Right.
We don't believe that. And when they know you believe that,
No, that makes sense.
It's a very different feel.
Listen, Mike works in his basement by himself, so he's like, I can't even relate to any
I
of
don't
this.
even like people enough to.
And he
hire.
comes
So that's
out
a
to go
whole
to
other
the.
thing we need to talk about.
He comes out
actually.
once in a while to go to the movies
Yeah.
with his daughter.
Yeah, I'll be
He's got a
honest.
daughter who looks like, I thought she was about 16. She's actually 11 because she's taller than
She's
Mike.
baby Shaq.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
5'6", 100.
And he takes her to the movie, like the new movie. What is it?
I wanna see that tonight.
Avengers
Are you-
Black Panther or whatever it is.
Oh, we went and saw Black Panther. This anything that's like
I haven't seen
comic
that yet.
book-
I'm gonna see it.
well,
The comic book related ones.
Yeah.
He sees all
for
those
sure.
before anyone,
Yeah.
except for George Wolf.
It
He
explains
sees them
the way
first
that
because
I
he sees them
dress.
free.
He's got a
Actually,
Punisher shirt.
Jason has that shirt in white.
And the last movie I
Him and
saw
my
in the
husband get along
theater was
great.
James
No,
Bond
I
Spectre.
probably hate him. I hate like everybody.
They're
I
very
hate
similar.
everybody.
in a
So you can
scary-
tell
I
me
have a
all
few
about
employees
Black
like that.
Panther, and I won't go see it. I'll wait for it on
They're
cable
just
like in
gonna
6
be
years.
good.
Yes,
I was gonna say I will wait.
No,
till
the
watch
last
it in
superhero,
2025.
the last superhero movie I saw was Batman, and I love Jack Nicholson in that. That was
That was
1989. Yeah, I know. That's the last one I
I
saw.
was 8 years old.
I had
You're
graduated.
59 years old. I'm not good with math.
I had graduated from Ohio State like
Oh,
4
I
years
was born
earlier.
in '79. So actually, I was 10.
So I'm old enough to be your dad. Cool.
Yeah.
I was in high school.
79.
79. I
39.
turned 16. I learned to
Flex word
drive.
with the math.
I can do that math almost.
And Madison was born in. He was born in like
He was born behind a
1976.
dumpster, is what I know.
It's only 2000.
Well, that's your older brother, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
No,
it's
he
true.
has always been the baby brother. He's my
Oh, okay.
That explains
I thought
why
he
wears
was older
baby
than you.
clothes.
That's right.
baby blue.
They're boy mediums.
Yeah.
So
I thought he was older than you.
No,
Oh, okay.
I know.
Oh,
I
yeah,
look
how
younger.
many-
I understand.
easy now, Joe.
Wait,
'Cause
easy
I'm the-
How
I'm the-
many siblings do you have?
How many
13.
siblings?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I can tell he thinks we have a lot
Do
more.
you
than
have
we
other-
So we should go with this.
Do you have 3 or
There's
4 other
Tommy
brothers and
and
sisters?
Sarah
I
and
have
Jake.
sister
I
wives.
barely care about the 2 that I know, so I'm not going to get all hyped up about any of the other ones.
Do you have other siblings?
You probably don't
Yeah, I
have
have
any
a-
siblings
I
because
have
you
a
probably
sister.
My
scared them
sister's
off
the
for being
oldest.
born.
Then my
I have
brother's
a
the middle.
sister.
and
We
me.
talked.
3 of
We
you.
had a great
Okay.
conversation 4 years
With
ago.
me, there's 4 of us. I'm the oldest.
Hi, if you're watching.
And the only one without kids.
That's cute.
So the only one who's something's wrong with him.
What'd you say?
You
I'm,
were
I'm the oldest of 4. I'm the oldest of 4.
Oh, I heard
I'm the
that.
only one without kids.
Rachel goes,
I got
"Or the
9
smart
nieces
one."
and nephews. My mom even told me. My dad said before he died, "Do not have children."
He didn't say it
You're like,
right
love
then.
you too, Dad.
Yeah.
No, I
Take
said
that
I'm
last
not
breath.
going
Never have
to.
kids.
Or then
Yeah.
there's committee.
bad.
Then there's committee that you know of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Committee's
Oh.
baby.
He's the production director over at Jack FM, The Blitz, and MNI. He's an old friend of mine from going back to the early 90s, late 80s. He used to work here.
Nice.
I always say, I have no kids, and he always, that you know of. To say, somewhere out there, there's a young boy with beard and glasses wondering why he's a Steely Dan fan.
Yeah, a 9-year-old. That's how I picture when he says young boy with a full beard.
With a full
He looks
beard.
like James Limited.
He's like 10 years old. He's got a full
What is your
beard.
favorite Cures food? Aren't you 9? All right, are
Here
we
we go.
ready? Let's
Yes.
go. Let's do it.
He's going to... We got Facebook on
Oh,
both
yeah,
sides.
dueling banjos.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where did you get that tripod?
I love
Don't
it.
worry about it.
I got
You
it
wish
for
you
him.
knew.
Madison is 10.
I got it out of the special place.
Matt
He was in the
just wanted
Q
to get his
studio.
best side over here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See, that's what he wants.
Might want to
He
try
wants
the
his
other
best
one.
side, the sun shining in
That
on
ain't
him.
working. Yeah,
We've got
you're in the Andrew seat.
we've got dueling Facebook now.
That's
He's
right.
going to watch the women that are jogging out there and walking their dogs.
Well,
Andrew's just gonna pop up from the window.
Exactly. Andrew's going to be sitting out there
Hey guys, I
stalking
was
us.
on the roof. All right,
Here we go.
ready?
Here we go.
Welcome back to the 101, brought to you by Lincoln Wallace. Here with Madison and his sister, Jen Glowacki.
Got it.
Would you like to say it a different way?
Glowacki.
I like it the way I said it. So, I want to get back into it today. We are putting the human back in human resources. We talked during the break, Jen, that I want to get into this because you gave us probably 3,000 to 4,000 bullet points of human resources related stuff, and I'm not going to read them. I barely printed this email off just to know your name. So, but you came here from Colorado, and you're running you're the HR person for your husband's business, but also you do HR for Lincoln Wallace.
Correct.
So you had talked about absenteeism and disengagement, which I asked you was that 2 different things, and you corrected me in not so nice a manner, but that's the same thing. So can you talk about absenteeism first? Don't look at my notes. You should know. I just wrote these words that you said. and you paused to look at what I wrote.
I'm just making sure you spelled it right.
I did not. I spelled
Sound it out.
Glowwaki, and that's your last name, and that's not even close. So absenteeism, Jen.
Yes, absenteeism. Well, actually, when I came into my role at Glow, that was our biggest issue. Between people coming in late or calling off, literally every day there was somebody out. And obviously at first, in my lack of experience and wisdom, I thought the answer to that was policies. So, we created all these different policies. We need more rules.
I know you didn't show up, but just in case, there's another rule if you don't show up.
Right.
Yeah.
So I look back on it and I have to laugh because it was just a good learning lesson for me that you can make as many rules in a company as you want, and unless you have the culture, the rules have no value. They really don't get you anywhere except just frustrated and really spending a lot of time doing paperwork. So I proceeded after that experience to move into the culture building because absenteeism is a result of not wanting to be at work and finding an excuse not to be there.
I'm sorry, but that's the greatest ever. See, when a child's absent, it doesn't mean that they don't want to be there. They just don't show up. So go ahead. I'm sorry. That was a great definition.
It's so true.
Thanks.
When you're hungry, when you eat, you're no longer hungry. My name's Jen Glowacki.
Well, I think we try to make up all these reasons, like why people don't show up to work, or like,
No,
well,
it's
I guess
just
they had a flat tire. They must be tired. And you're like,
Well,
they
think
don't want to
about-
be at your
Think
company.
about when you just don't want to be there and you call and you're like, my mom, her, you make up all these excuses. I have to do this. I have to go help with this. And most of the time it's just BS. Like, you just don't want to be there. You don't want to get out of bed. And then I did it. Or you're hungover.
Wait, what was
Or-
your worst one?
My
What's the
worst one?
worst absentee excuse you gave?
When I put in my 2 weeks.
Like, I'm not going to be here after these 2 weeks.
That's
ever
right.
again.
I won't be back.
Yeah, so I mean, I think absenteeism first and foremost comes from a lack of people wanting to be in the workplace that they're at. They're not happy, they don't feel that they have purpose, or they don't feel they matter. They don't feel that if I'm there or I'm not there, nobody's going to care. And so one of the things that we added into the culture is a strengths-based focus, because when people know that the way they do their job is unique and nobody can do it the way they do, now they matter, and they know the people need them, and they want to get up and come to work. If you think about that, it's actually creating purpose in people's lives. And as entrepreneurs, when you're you have an opportunity to actually give people purpose, to give them value, and to bring passion back into their life, that flows into their families and all of the personal endeavors that they go into as well. So it's pretty awesome when you get to see the impact you can have versus just trying to use rules to regulate.
Well, I mean, apply it to somebody like Rachel. You have a really good person that you work with every day.
I do. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
You do. And if for some reason you might not admit it live on air, but if you would happen to lose Rachel, like that's a
Oh my God.
Well, I mean,
Blessings.
Yes. But I mean, Rachel keeps you straight, and she knows it, and you know it. We all know it because when she walked in, how much money did you not know or not account for? I mean, you can go into all different elements of it.
I only lost $237,000.
That's it.
That was it. $237,000, and then she came in and said, "This isn't right." And I'm like, "Do it your way if it's so much better." Yeah, we make money now, but I miss the old days when I was like borrowing money
Yeah.
just to stay alive, like borrowing money to like pay the rent to stay in business.
Yeah.
But yes, she is a valuable asset, but let's not focus on her.
No, but you know what I'm saying.
Right, but she also is the HR person.
Yes.
So if anything goes wrong, I'm
two
like,
people.
that's your fault. Yeah.
Right.
Well, what's funny is we did interview somebody that I knew, and I said, well, basically, you have to work for her. And I was like, that is such an unfair thing. Because I don't really have a whole lot of rules, but she has no patience whatsoever. It was not good. It was like, you're going to be here tomorrow? Tomorrow? We never saw him again. I'm not even sure if he's in the United States or Denver. But it did
Your
not-
interview sent him running.
Yeah. But you know how you look at, like, that is the face that I would think of HR. Non-smiling, non-plus, like, whatever you... Like, she's just listening. And I know she's listening, but most of the time I'm just like, you gotta loosen up, because this person is, like, sweating to death, like, looking for, like, some kind of response. Like, that's nice. Right? Because you said HR people are always looked at like they are the axis of evil, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Correct. Yes.
Do you think that's because that job is such a thankless job? Like, when you're doing your job right, there are no problems, but when things are going bad, you're the hammer?
Yeah, I think it's a misunderstood role. in the company. And yes, you typically are only getting FaceTime when there's problems. And actually, though, that's a really important point to make about the investment that you spend in the times when things are going well. If the only time I see an employee is when I have to move them into discipline, I don't have a rapport, that is going to go poorly. It absolutely will. But if I've invested a relationship prior to that, and then we can sit down, they trust me, they know that I am there to, I always say HR is to be neutral. Our role is not to protect any one person. Our role is to see both sides and to negotiate a fair outcome. When an employee comes with an issue with their manager, I never automatically side one way or the other. That's not my job. My job is to move both the manager and the employee into a place in which they thrive and the company can thrive because they are. That's where we're headed with it.
But do you think that you have a bias? I'm just saying this because I actually learned this a couple weeks ago. Do you have a bias one way or another? So you have the
towards managers,
towards the company, because it's your family's company. I don't mean this in a negative way,
right?
But I was thinking about, take yourself out of the equation. When we had HR people, when we had to deal with them, their bias was, I'm going to keep my job. I've got to protect this company.
That's the beauty of the role that I get to play, though, because I'm not just an employee. I own the company.
But that's what I'm saying, though. You have a bias.
But that bias is a good one for them. Because if I was just an employee, yes, I'm protecting myself as well.
I see what you're saying.
But see, this is my company, and so therefore I am invested in my people, not my role.
I see.
Which is a very amazing aspect of entrepreneurship that I think we need to capitalize on when you have that position.
But it's also a family business, right? So if you and Madison, and he is a very disagreeable person, but if you guys had an issue, you're kind of bound to each other, right?
Yes, and my husband and I play that role often. I mean, we don't agree on every decision we make with staff. I sometimes have to pull rank, and sometimes he pulls rank, and that's important to know. Decisions aren't just being made out of policy. We just had this a week ago. We had an employee who left the company just due to needing some better pay, and I actually brought that employee back to the company after finding out the reason. Because the employee was amazing. We have no issues with them, never had to write them up. They work great with the teammate that they have in their department, and they just were afraid to ask for a pay raise. And so I got them on the phone and talked to them, and we went through the process of how they could have handled it better, and they work for us now. And they, my husband said, there's some protocol differences, and why are you making that decision? I don't know if that's a good precedent to set. But I was going off of the person and how it affected the other staff that this person was not there. And the cost we were going to spend to replace that individual. I mean, you're going to spend literally $15,000 to $20,000 minimum just to replace him, let alone hours of staff.
Let's do this because that kind of dovetails into, we were talking about absenteeism, which you defined as people not showing up. Okay. I think there's more to it, but that's basically what you said. And then, but you said absenteeism develops into disengagement, and you said the worst part about disengagement is the active disengagement.
Yes.
Give people that number of the active disengagement, because I find that stunning.
Well, okay, so first of all, just as far as engagement goes in general, in the United States, 33% of people are actually engaged at work.
Say that again. Because the first time I heard it, I didn't understand it. 33% are
actually engaged. These are only 33% of the people going to work every day want to go. The rest of us are just showing up because we have to. And internationally, it's 13%.
13% are engaged. Now I don't feel so bad because I did not care.
But the actively disengaged.
Because you're in that. Because you're in that 87%.
Oh, please. I was, everybody wants to be the 1% that's an entrepreneur. I was there. Like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
But go ahead. So 13, that's a huge number.
Yes, it's staggering and scary. I mean, we spend most of our hours in our life at work. So if we're miserable, the majority of your life feels miserable and unfulfilling and purposeless.
Basically. To say that stuff doesn't carry over.
Absolutely matters.
Well, what I was saying to her was during the break was, it's like that poisoning the well. They say that one person always poisons the well. It's not really that. The well kind of is being poisoned by a bunch of other people, and like 3 or 4 people are like, don't drink that. Mm-hmm. Don't drink out of that, right? That is a huge number. So if you're hiring people or you have people that work for you, how do you kind of weed that out and go, ooh, I got to get rid of it? Because you can't fire someone and just go, I don't like the way you look today.
Correct. Correct. Well, actively disengaged employees are employees who not only aren't engaged, but actually are working against the company.
Oh, yeah, that was me.
And typically it's because they're bitter about something in the workplace that isn't corrected, and it may not even be the company they're at currently at fault, but it's a history of bad work experiences, and they feel that they're owed something that they're not getting, or whatever that might be. They're on a vendetta now. So they're actually seeking to cause destruction for the company.
And it's unconscious stuff too.
Yes, I don't say this in a way that I'm trying to make them evil. I think it's a human reaction that we're having. Like, I'm angry. I'm not good at telling you I'm mad at you, so I'm going to go and knock your coffee over and flatten your tires out there in the parking lot.
That was so extreme.
I had to think about
I'm
it.
gonna knock
So
your
what should I
will,
go
though.
do?
Yeah.
Don't tread on her,
Knock
bro.
your coffee
Because
over
I
and
don't really
nuke
want to
your
tell you I
hand.
don't like your hair.
Well, it can't be that because you'd be lying.
So it's a lack of ability to handle conflict as well, and to be able to be upfront in the workplace about what's really driving your disengagement and your frustrations. What I do is I don't expect employees, obviously I coach them to come forward, but I think one of the things you have to own as a leader in your business is that you need to look for that, and you need to go vet that out. When I see someone disgruntled for more than a few days to a week, I go talk to them. What's up? You're off. Something's wrong. I'm not going to just leave that and hope it goes away, because it never does. Once someone's actively disengaged, they rarely are able to come back on their own to be re-engaged with a company.
But how many times do you have to go in and do that? I mean, I'm not saying there's a certain amount or limit, but I've noticed that once somebody is not with it, you can baby them all you want and kind of bring them back. And I don't mean to say it like in a negative way, but it's like, how many times do I have to pat you on the back? Because there's going to be a point where I can't. I've got to pick up somebody else, right?
Yes. And actually, I wouldn't say it as a pat in the back. I would say it, I'm concerned that you're having some trouble. What's up? Once they share what that is, yes, I am empathetic, and also you have to be able to do your job. So we're working on this together,
Wow, that came
right?
off super angry.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that you're right. You have to still hold accountability. I think that is what happens in HR, is that we don't know how to blend both the empathy and the accountability, and you have to be able to do both.
Right. I think that's where if you're an entrepreneur, you lack some kind
Empathy.
of... Well, because you're chasing the creative part, the
Yeah.
vision you
Yeah.
have.
Absolutely.
So you are emotionally wrapped up in that. Your empathy is very...
Low.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Jen. It's low. What else was I going to say?
Hold on, let me read your mind.
I mean, it's perfect that we have an HR person interrupting. So, but the key being, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to be empathetic, you need somebody to do your human resources stuff.
Yes.
Because you do need a buffer, and I think that's an excellent... We talk about that every single week, that your HR has to... It's not just who works there, but it's settling those conflicts and getting rid of those to a point.
Yeah.
Yes. Once you get your culture to a certain place, when you flip the script from the 33% being engaged to the 90% being engaged, the other employees weed themselves out. That's the beauty of the process.
Yep.
So instead of focusing on fixing all the bad apples, we're focusing on creating the culture that we want and bringing people into that. And eventually those other individuals don't want to work there, because that's not the culture that they thrive in.
Right.
So they naturally move on.
Let's let that sink in. We got to go to break. We're going to be right back, but everybody take in that last little sentence. They naturally move on. Because I want to know, if you're getting rid of the bad apples, how do you bring in good apples?
Mm-hmm.
We'll do that after the break. You're listening to the 101, brought to you by Lincoln Wallace.
Glad to know I'm in the, 33%?
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, I don't make any money here, but now my boss is watching on Facebook.
There's no way.
But
you can't afford a Facebook.
I've worked here 34 years, and I enjoy the job.
When was the last time you asked for a raise?
No, he's given me raises
Okay.
before. But I was 25 years. I was part-time, and we had a general manager here quite some time, a long time ago, that treated the part-time DJs like something he, peeled off the bottom of his shoe. He just didn't care about them. Raise! They're a dime a dozen, idiots.
He was a pirate.
Exactly. But then, this is the fourth general manager I've worked for. I get along great with Chris. I like him. He's given me a raise. The general manager before him made me full-time.
That's great.
I'm talking about this.
The two GMs
Oh,
before
the
him.
strengths.
You want to touch on that?
They
Yeah,
love
we
the
can-
we can
full-timers.
go anywhere you
The
want.
full-timers love them.
Yeah, so this is the strengths program I was telling you about.
I know,
We
there's
actually
no
have
report.
every
Who is
staff
going to
on
cover
the
it?
company.
I was watching the draft
This is my
for
top
5 minutes. It would have been really
So
good.
she knows Baker Mayfield went first.
I don't know who
Oh,
that
we're going to
is.
get Yay Sports in.
She's a quarterback.
For
I think
who?
that
He drafted by the Cleveland
he's
Browns, number one.
That is terrible.
He's the guy
I wanna
from
make sure you maximize
Oklahoma who
your-
runs around grabbing his crotch, screaming obscenities at the
goodness.
other team, and he's been arrested by the police, and he's got maturity issues. But
might be a little-
hopefully he'll grow up.
But all that aside,
Hopefully he'll learn.
Other than that, he's a great human.
No,
when we come
other
back,
than that,
we'll
he's
do
got
a Yay
great
Sports
athletic
report right away.
ability.
the Yates. I don't have anything though.
Well,
I never
that's
do.
why.
Honestly.
I was gonna say, how is that different?
Toronto and
Say you watch
Cleveland
the
in
draft.
overtime.
And you don't know
Yeah,
anything about it.
think
You can
that
say,
it's
brought to you by
Cleveland
along,
beat Toronto in
write-ups is a good
overtime.
one
The
because
Toronto
Write-ups.
Argonauts.
that people have
Michael will
to
crack up if you say the Toronto
discipline
Blue Jays.
people.
The Toronto Blue Jays
And
lost in
I've
overtime to the
changed
Cleveland Browns.
I don't want to
and
do the
actually
sports report
created
today.
the corrective action
Not
process.
feeling it.
And it's been the most effective thing we've done from a disciplinary perspective. That I think would
Got a
be
lot of
helpful
good
for people
HR
to
stuff
see
here.
That they could do that.
How many more breaks? Do we have one more break?
This is it.
Okay.
This is it.
Oh,
Got about
so
12
fast.
more minutes. It's
Do
the
you
home
want-
stretch.
Do you want to, at the end, like, is there anything you want to get out there?
You sure you don't want to do it?
I don't want to do it today.
She's not feeling it.
I gotta watch some sports.
No, you don't. That's the whole point of the Yay Sports report is you don't know what's going on.
She watched the
Well, you
NBA
can say
draft
last
The
week was
NBA draft.
you can
or the
say-
NFL draft. I can do
That'd
that.
be great if she said
Yep.
the NBA draft, just so I can correct you and go with the
I
NFL.
almost texted you and Madsen when I was watching
I
it,
think that would be.
but I didn't.
I can't imagine
Um,
what you're watching. You're going. I don't
And
know
then
the
we have-
teams or
They
the
were taking
players.
forever.
That's
So-
what it's a TV show.
You know,
Especially the first
So-
round. You get these general managers and owners that take forever for the last second. Okay, 6 more seconds. Hey, the pick is in. It's like, geez, it took long enough.
I came into some.
That's why I don't watch it.
with
It's
them.
boring as...
Super
Okay.
Bowl.
Yeah, he's talking. Go on.
I just want to go on the internet the next day and say, okay, where did the Ohio State Buckeye players get taken? But that's
So
my
she
alma
wants to
mater,
do
so
that,
that's what
and
I
then she
care
also
about.
wants to, like,
Well, let's do that then. Let's take that approach.
Or who
Let's
did the
take
Dallas
that
Cowboys
approach.
take? Because I can't stand them and I want to see them screw up.
What,
I wanna see
what
them
you-
lose.
What you envision is
Kind of like the New York
because your
Yankees
HR
baseball
portion
team. I
is
can't
more
stand
like
them.
your
I love seeing them
entrepreneurial side
lose.
as well.
Yeah.
Baseball's boring.
Mhm.
So we're gonna do that, and then you just go. I feel bad because I feel like I'm not.
I used to
engaging.
love it, but then they canceled the
Yeah,
World
like I
Series
feel
in
like I'm not
'94
getting
because of
issues.
greed,
this
so
is
I got
okay.
mad and never came back.
I wasn't done. I only feel bad.
I
when
root
I'm
for the
doing it.
Cleveland
I don't
Indians
give
to
a
win,
fuck.
and they're doing well. Cincinnati Reds stink. Now they'll get better, and then the Indians will stink. I want to see a World Series, all Ohio. That would be cool.
Podcast this shit.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's just focus on these two things.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we'll cover everything we need.
Got about 12 more minutes,
Okay.
and you're doing a terrific job.
Thank
You
you.
sound great. Seriously.
Thanks.
Just make sure that when you talk,
Yeah,
Yeah,
when you're
I-
turning your head to
I
look
keep-
at him, just
you
make
gotta,
sure you go
when you
this.
talk, be right here. 'Cause,
Okay.
even when you look at
No,
him,
she
you kinda
sounds
gotta act
fine.
like
I'm
a stick.
looking at the levels over here. You sound great.
Oh, okay.
Listen,
Okay.
You're doing so well. We're gonna record it next.
This is just a trial run.
Yeah.
Great.
Next, it's
she wants
for
to get a
real.
whole show done,
perfect.
and then we just redo it.
We're going to set up another Facebook camera.
We need
3
9
of them.
more cameras.
Yeah.
We're like filming
I'm
Titanic.
glad we're going to do the real thing later. 'cause
James
we can get an
Cameron's coming
interviewer.
in to direct.
This is my show. Horse.
James Cameron's coming in to
So
direct,
kidding.
right, Michael?
Yes. I just want to see the special effects we put on these. Now they have new filters.
Let's do it.
All
We should be
right.
wearing like cowboy hats.
Mustaches. Well, I'll have Andrew beard.
Mustache.
Exactly. There you go.
Okay.
That's just-
Giant Andrew beard.
Yes. All right, we ready?
Yep. Here we go.
Welcome back to the 101, brought to you by Lincoln Wallace. We've been spending this time putting the human back into human resources and bad apples. So before the break, we kind of talked about, the absenteeism versus disengagement, how that one becomes the other. But I was thinking about this. This is not just something you do for one company. This is what you're going to be doing. Like, this is your entrepreneurial piece, Jen. This is
Correct.
You're going to do this for other companies, and it's not just in the state of Denver. It's all over the place.
Correct.
And if you
It's
didn't
in other
tune in,
states like
if you didn't
Columbus.
tune in the beginning, Jen did say she came all the way from the state of Denver. And she's technically not wrong, except if you look at a
Well,
map.
actually, to correct it, you said, what state did you come from? And she said Denver. So it was kind of a trick question.
No.
Kind of was.
No.
Agreed.
This is brother,
I
sister
would've been-
teaming up.
yeah.
High five.
I don't care. You're both midgets. All I want to say is, if she had said the state of confusion, I would have forgiven that. But the state of Denver, I'm not letting that go.
It feels like a state. That's why I said that.
Yeah, it does. So, you are moving forward. You're not doing just HR in one spot. So you're taking what we've been talking about, and you're doing this for other companies across the United States, right? So,
Correct.
how did you start doing it? Or are you going to start doing it?
I'm going to start doing that. Yes.
Perfect. So let's
Right
talk
now,
about
let's
that.
do that.
I mean, let's not start it here, but
You're my first client.
well, you're
He,
fired.
he needs it.
I am.
That was quick.
I
Well,
am
actually, I'm not.
67% disengaged to what you were saying. So you're starting this it would be a consulting business. right?
Correct.
So do you think that that's going to be tough? Like Madison and I talk about this all the time. When you walk into somebody's culture is already set. What I always say is I want to find the worst, the biggest mess there is, because when you start fixing the little things, you can see a change in that environment.
Mhm.
When you're coming from the HR world, sure you don't want to go. I want to go right into that dumpster fire over there. But like, what is the ideal situation for you to go in?
A situational issue. I think that it's easiest to be able to have something a company's identified as a pain point. And then when we go in, we focus on the pain point because I believe that every pain point tells the story of the company. I don't need to know the entire history of your company in 1 hour. The situation will give me a lot of that data, and I can give feedback, and it will tie into many other aspects of what's going on across the country. Across the country.
Yeah, I mean,
across
it
the
could
company.
be across the
It
country.
could be.
If it's a
Yes.
really big building.
Well, we are in the state of
It's on
Denver.
state.
I came from the state of Denver,
State of
so
Denver,
at
yeah.
this rate,
Very nice.
that's where we're
It's
going.
It's
beautiful.
the 56th state. They just
Yeah.
added it.
Yeah, we added it.
So, do you have to love doing HR, like to want to do this for other people? Because it's not just your family-owned business or working with your brother. If you want to get in, like you want to get into the mess with people.
Yes.
So, what drives you to want to do that?
I know what it feels like to come out of the mess, and I also know what it feels like to work at a company where you have an amazing culture, and I want other companies to have that. Because, there are things that you measure in your company, your profitability, your return on your investments, your growth. And that goes to a certain extent where you're happy with that and you get a high out of that. But there's a whole nother level when you have a culture in your company. And you know that you've created that, and you have, we have people in our company come up to us that, a lot of 20-year-olds that are like, you've given me an experience for my lifetime working here, and you've invested in me as a person, and I'll never forget that. Apparently you've done that as well.
No, I'm just looking back here because I have a 20-year-old back here who is, she should be saying these things, but don't.
She does.
I'm trying, I'm encouraging her.
She's on her phone.
Well, and not to stop Jen real quick, but I'm in this session right now. I'm promoting Jen because as an entrepreneur and a business owner, my business platform is working with owners, and I love that. I did that at NBC, and I've seen what she's done from a cultural standpoint, and you see these pain points in other companies and what that means to them when somebody can come in and deal with something that's a pain point. And Jen's not going out seeking, I'm going to start this company and I want to go cold call all these businesses. She has a skill set that's really powerful, and it's a resource. And she's not looking to just go in somebody and have to pitch them. This is a commitment.
Well, and it's also not like you're sticking a dog on somebody. I mean, it's you need conflict resolution. You need policies in place. So what I think is cool about it is I don't know how many people have a business like that. Because we always talk about what Madison does. He works, how's the phrase? He works in your business so you can work on your business. That you're putting out the fires in the back or setting protocol and working with people, whereas Madison is helping with the back end of the books. It all kind of goes together. Because I can tell you, we see in our every single day walk of life, we're only dealing with the part that makes you revenue. But then you see all the other mess in the back, and it's like, I don't want to touch that because I'm not skilled at it. But to know that there are people out there that are skilled at it that can help is important.
Yeah, it is. And that's why it's such a good resource for us, because seeing what Jen's done at Glow and creating that culture, it's a proven concept. It's way more powerful than you realize.
I realize.
Yeah.
I think too with entrepreneurs, one of the things that you want is you want the business where you don't have to micromanage your people.
Well, I like the aspect of I don't have to manage I have to manage my people in one area, but like somebody else that is a third party can come in. They are not, just because they're getting paid by a company, they are not taking sides.
That's
Correct.
right.
It would be hard. The reason I brought up the bias thing, and before we took the break last time, was I learned that from Scott Smith. Hello, Scott. You're not probably watching this, but the attorney that we do a show with, he wanted me to serve on jury duty, and I was like, absolutely not. So he said, they're going to ask you the question, do you have any biases? And I thought he meant like race, religion, any of that. And I'm like, oh, of course. But no, but what he said was you have biases already. So you, not so much the race and religion, but like you have a bias towards your family. Your family is very important. I always think of the negative part. So if you're running a business, my bias is this is my company, I'm right. If you have a third party, they can't think, they have no
There's no
emotional
excuse
attachment.
for the employee either. Well, they work here, and I see you guys
Right.
hanging out, and you're buddy. No, this is somebody coming in to do a job and to
Right.
get stuff done, and they're here for a reason.
And the amazing part of having someone come in, as I will do, is that I've learned a lot of mistakes along the way about being able to be neutral and to be able to hold that space between the owners or managers and the rest of the staff and be able to really identify what's causing the problem. My goal is not to come in and put a Band-Aid on your business. My goal is to come in and we're going to do surgery, but you're going to be better than you were before. And you're going to also be able to continue forward with what I'm giving you. I'm not creating, I really am strong on not creating codependency in what you offer companies. That I
We
haven't
need that
done
in
my
this show.
job.
We need that kind of thing in this show.
I agree.
But I mean, you want people, you want your staff empowered to be able to own their role at the company, and you want your owners to be able to do their job with freedom as well. So that, like you said, they're not tied down by the back door, Sarah and Joey don't get along, and what do I do? But yet, at the same time, they're not going to worry, oh my gosh, in 3 months it's going to happen again. We got to call Jen again, and it's still a problem. I'm going in to solve the problem long term for you and give you tools that have proven they work, and I've vetted them and ensured that they work. And I'm very big too on customizing. If it doesn't work for your culture and for your business, then we need to find what does. I'm not going to come
Tell
in
them how
and
you
say,
do your 90-day breakdown.
so 30, 60, 90 is a process of onboarding staff and being able to assess whether or not that staff member is going to be a good fit. And I tell new employees, this is for you to assess that this is the job that you thought you took as well. We're in this together. Because you also could have thought that this was very different, and now you're disgruntled that the job didn't turn out to be what you wanted. But in that 30, 60, 90, we established consistency in the first 30 days of training, and we build competency through that consistency so that they're confident when they leave that 90-day process to go do the job they got hired to do. Also, we're prepared to let people go if that's not happening. If you keep an employee past 90 days, they stay 10 years, and they cost you millions of dollars. It's crazy.
Wait, say that again, because it made it sound like it was a bad thing. If they stay for 10
If you keep the wrong employee that you knew wasn't the right fit, but you didn't want to go back to hire again because it is one hell of a process, right? That average is then that bad apple, so to speak, will stay 10 years before you finally let them go. And in that
it's gotta be hard to fire someone that's been there that long. Because I was wondering about that. Like, how do you fire someone that's been coming, like, say it's 5 or 6 years?
Yeah.
And they've been coming to work almost all the time. And then, but you have to fire them. Like, that would be the point where I'd be like, oh my God, let's just go out of business rather than have to deal with this HR nightmare.
Yeah, we've had to do that. It's hard.
Wow, you've gone out of business?
No. No, we've had to let people go that have been there a long time.
I see.
You take the personal side out of it and explaining to them that this isn't you. It's very important to respect what people have contributed to your company. It's very important to let them know the value that they bring, and that the company is going to a different place, and it requires different personnel with different skill sets, and it's a time to part ways. And I think it's the way you word it that changes everything about the way the person leaves your company. And my mom taught me that. My mom, I would go around town with my mom, and she would have past employees come up to her, people she had let go, that would come up and greet her with a smile, because she always maintained respect and acknowledged the human being that would work for her, and never belittled people when she let them go. And that's very important, that the person feels they had value, even if they're no longer the fit for the company. When you can do that, your company also creates a community culture and a community presence that they weren't able to have before. And I think that's another tool that companies, when they have that, they have peace of mind. Because it's hard to let people go, and it can haunt you.
It's haunting me now. I haven't even let somebody go yet. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for this week, but I'd like to thank former professor, former babysitter runner, Jen, for coming in, and we'll get you on a boat back to Denver. But thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the 101 brought to you by Lincoln Walls.
Good stuff.
Yeah.